Hello and welcome to episode 5 of UFL Tonight. I am your host, James Baker. Now, this is a very special episode because we just had an action-packed weekend of some superstar performances, some long field goals, and some fantastic rookie debuts. Starting off in front of a sold-out crowd in Louisville, it was a night to remember, and the city made sure they will remember it as Louisville Mayor Craig Greenberg announced March 27th as the official Louisville Kings Day in the city. So leading up to the game, we had the city hyped, fans were tailgating, and the entire spring football world was centered on Louisville, Kentucky. But here's the thing, you have all these fans to pack out the stadium, but you need someone to lead them. Well, ladies and gentlemen, meet Derby, your brand new mascot for the Louisville Kings. Derby is this awesome royal horse who clearly gives nod to the Kentucky Derby that's held just a few miles away at the Churchill Downs, where the Kings held a packed fan rally back in February. Overall, the football game was sort of a mixed bag. The Kings' first offensive possession ended in a rather unfortunate interception as tight end Zach Davidson just bobbled the ball, and then Birmingham would take it on down the field to score with Snoop Connor, scoring the first points of the night, but it would only be 6 as Jonathan Garibay missed the extra point. Yes, the first extra point in UFL history after bringing it back has been missed. Later on in the quarter, Jason Bean connects with Lucky Jackson, and the Kings have their first touchdown in franchise history. And well, Tanner Brown nails the extra point, so Kings are up 7-6. It would stay at 7-6 well into the second quarter as Birmingham had the chance to take the lead, but this time Jonathan Garibay's kick was blocked. Definitely a rough start to their special teams unit. But they got it back on track as Garibay nails a 31-yard attempt to break the ice with 4 minutes left in the second. The Kings trot all the way down the field and hand the ball off to Isaiah Wheeler on the 2-yard line, who tries to punch it in, but Stallions Cavazzino punches it right out. Very reminiscent of that 2024 UFL Championship, and what a crucial blow to the hometown crowd as the Stallions go up in a half 9-7. But that crowd got treated to one of the best performances of the weekend as country music star Russell Dickerson took center stage at Lynn Family Stadium in a concert no one wanted to miss, including the Birmingham Stallions, who seemed a little grumpy coming out of the locker room and seemed upset that they missed some good old WrestleMania as they got into a little interaction with some Louisville Kings fans down there in the tunnel. But that passion helped fuel Birmingham though, as Jaden Mickens put up over 100 yards on 9 catches, and former first-round pick John Ross found the end zone as their defense held the Kings to just 2 field goals the entire second half. The Kings did have a shot in the end, however, quarterback Jason Bean launched a deep interception to Hudson Clark to seal the game as the Stallions win 15-13. That game was definitely one to remember, and there's definitely a budding rivalry between these two horse teams. But if we're talking about rivalries in the UFL, it doesn't get any bigger than the DC Defenders versus the St. Louis Battlehawks. This game started off like every other Battlehawks game in the Dome in front of 30,000 plus. It was really cool getting to see Battlehawks alum Jacob Sailors be an honorary captain for the coin toss. But little did they know that they'd all be witnessing history as early in the first quarter, Matt McCrane hit the first ever 4-point field goal in football history. The best part, UFL co-owner Mike Rapoli was in attendance for this game, and just a few weeks ago, he had a kicking competition where Matt McCrane won $500 by kicking a 65-yard field goal at UFL HQ. What a full circle moment for him to kick the first 60-yard field goal with him in attendance at the Battle Dome. It was absolute madness seeing a 60-yard field goal, and then if you were Shannon Harris, you also got to see a tush push. All in all, the DC Defenders put up just 10 points. That 4-point field goal and a 1-yard score by Deion Jackson in the first quarter, and then were shut out as the St. Louis defense stunned the defending champs, putting up 7 sacks on Jordan Teamu. Offensively, St. Louis didn't have the best outing, but their 3 field goals and a touchdown were enough to lead them past DC 17-10. And it wasn't a complete snooze fest as that St. Louis crowd got treated to a Nelly concert, and ESPN announced the matchup as their second highest viewed UFL game ever. Later on Saturday was the historic Texas Throwdown. However, this was the first actual meeting between the Houston Gamblers and the Dallas Renegades. Dallas was a very big question mark going into their first game in franchise history without Bob Stoops at head coach, and their first game since the middle of 2023 without Luis Perez as their starting quarterback. And the offense would eventually be the talk of the town, but the Renegades season started off by scoring on the defense, with Nolan Henderson's pass being picked off by Stephen Jones for a 30-yard pick six. The first quarter proved to be rather uneventful, but the fireworks started flying in the second as the rookie quarterback Austin Reed tosses a pair of touchdowns along with a 51-yard kick from Colton Beaker to go into half up 23-3. Meanwhile, on the other side of the ball, Houston was switching it up a bit, benching Nolan Henderson for Hunter Deckers. And I don't know what was said to these teams in the locker room as Ty Myers rocked the stage in Frisco, but they came out of this locker room with some wild UFL football. On the first play from scrimmage of the half, Austin Reed finds his wide receiver Greg Ward Jr., the former Houston speedster, for a 66-yard touchdown. Then on the resulting kickoff, Jalen Moreno Cropper. We have a week 1 kickoff return for a touchdown. Are you kidding me? This is the United Football League at its finest. Sadly, that kickoff return would not be enough to slow down Austin Reed and company, as he'd go on to set the regular season passing record with 376 yards. What a debut for the rookie. Have yourself a day, AR-16. And we finished off week 1 in the beautiful Orlando, Florida at Inter-Enco Stadium for a very special game. It is so incredibly rare to see the first game of a pro sports franchise, let alone the first game for 2 pro sports franchises in the very same game. So this was one that all spring football fans were looking forward to all weekend long. And man, did Orlando fans show that they can keep up with the rest of us, as the storm surge at the wall was loud on that ESPN broadcast. For some reference, my buddy Chris Tisdale, he's a DC Defender season ticket holder. He made it out to that game in Orlando. He said the wall is so wide and that there were so many people there in the lower levels that if they were packed together like Audi Field, they would have filled it all the way to the top. So I can't wait to see how that fan base is going to grow going on throughout the year. And then also, yet again, the Orlando Storm are Mike Rapoli's home team. He said he's going to be at every single home game, and he was also there in attendance. And this fan base is going to grow just with some of the talent on this Orlando team. First play of the game on the kickoff, Columbus fields it, and the Storm knocked the ball out to gain possession. And then Ja'Shawn Corbin punches it in to get on the board first. Columbus had some moderate success moving the ball downfield, but Orlando was able to bend and not break, resulting in a pair of field goals and a tie at 6 apiece. A score that would stand until seconds remaining in the half as Lance drills a 55-yard field goal. Now at halftime, we got the most interesting show ever as DJ Khaled pulled up both to the broadcast booth and then also corner stage there at Inter-Enco Stadium. And he played a unique medley of songs that was a little bit hard to follow, but hey, Kratos was having fun. Orlando Storm, another one. Second half was a bit more lively with Ja'Shawn Corbin running in another touchdown to start things off. And then man, Jack Plummer connected with Elijah Badger for a 79-yard touchdown, but it was called back due to a block in the back on wide receiver Chris Rowland. Well, you may think to yourself, everybody hates Chris, but that was not true for long as he redeems himself on the 9-yard toe drag touchdown to finish what he started. Columbus would try and mount a small comeback with another Ryan Coe field goal to open up the fourth quarter down 9-23, but even after managing to get the ball back and another touchdown with running back Secondre White, there just wasn't enough time as the Storm take home the win 23-16. Now that's the recap for all these past weekend's games, and of course we also debuted our power rankings last week, but let's take a look at how things line up now after we've seen a week of action. Starting off at number 8 in our power rankings, it's going to be the same as last week. We have the Houston Gamblers. Now last week I said nothing about this Houston team really jumps out at me on paper. Well, on the field, not a lot jumped out either, as we clearly saw Dallas just kind of steamrolled them in week 1. They're staying at number 8 until they prove otherwise. At number 7, down 2 spots from last week, we have the Columbus Aviators. Now, this was a team I didn't expect to be too polished coming out the gate, but they just looked very, very sloppy. Outside of Ryan Coe, their special teams unit is fantastic, but this offense just left a lot to be desired. They were constantly stalling out. Just nothing about this team really screams we're better than the competition. Coming in at number 6 for the second week in a row, we have the Louisville Kings. Now, look, my expectations weren't too high for this team, and I think they actually played a little bit above my expectations, but Jason Bean just made some boneheaded mistakes at some boneheaded moments, and really, quite honestly, cost them the game. And simple mistakes like that will continue to haunt them all season long. Coming in at number 5, down 3 spots, is the team I was most wrong about, the DC Defenders. I assumed week 1 they were going to beat the brakes off St. Louis with their continuity at quarterback, with the continuity in their coaching staff, with just their continuity overall in their scheme. But hey, they had some complete lapses in communication. They were only able to put up 10 points. I still view them as a very strong team. Of course, they're defending champs, so they get a little bit more leeway, but hey, they're dropping all the way down to the bottom half after week 1. And at number 4, for the second week in a row, I am keeping the Birmingham Stallions. Now, listen, I think this team has the potential to be one of the best teams in this league. On paper, their team is fantastic. We're going to talk about it in a second, but they're getting a fantastic defensive tackle back, and that front 7 is already god tier, limiting the Louisville Kings to, I think, under 20-30 yards rushing. It was absolutely insane. However, the offense was a different story. Matt Corral and company kind of floundered a bit. They have a very talented wide receiver room, and I'm expecting them to pick it up as the year continues. But with a rookie head coach, a lot of rookie staff, it's going to take a little bit to get this team going. So they're sticking in at number 4 right now. And coming in at number 3, man, last week I had this team here strictly off of vibes, but now I can have them here off of fact. The Orlando Storm, man, they took matters into their own hands, starting with play 1 on the kickoff, punching that ball out. This Anthony Beck-led team is a force to be reckoned with. I'm keeping them there at number 3, and I think they can even get better as the season goes on. I'm not too sold on quarterback Jack Plummer just yet, but hey, he got the win last week. That's all that matters. And at number 2, up 5 spots, I got to give him the flowers. You know, I was kind of crapping on St. Louis a little bit, but hey, this team showed out in a way I could never imagine. 7 sacks on this defending championship offense. That is insane. Hey, it was at the Battle Dome. You have 30,000 fans rocking your name. They're going to have 4 more home games like that. It's going to disrupt communication for the opposing team. I'm looking forward to it. And right now, St. Louis, you're all the way up to number 2 in my power rankings. And at number 1, ladies and gentlemen, I told you last week, everybody thought I was crazy. I saw a comment that was like Renegades number 1 in the power rankings. What? Yes, Renegades are the best team in the United Football League. Listen, I've been saying for years now that, hey, if we get a new coach, things could be better. You know, maybe we should try swapping out Luis Perez, see what we have with other rookie quarterbacks. We do so game one, passing record. You can say all you want. Oh, it's a small sample size. Okay, fine, it's a small sample size, but that sample size is the best regular season game in United Football League history. How's that for a sample? Renegades. Best team in the league. Well, even after week 1, we already have some major transactions around the league. Starting off with some coaching changes, the Louisville Kings, after their week 1 loss to the Birmingham Stallions, have let go of offensive line coach Bruno Giacomini. The move, of course, comes as a bit of a surprise, being right after week 1. However, it is important to note that Birmingham limited Louisville to just 46 total rushing yards, and 27 of those were from quarterback Jason Bean. So, kind of understandable when looking back at it. Another week 1 casualty was Houston Gamblers safety Markel Roby. Now, Roby has been a solid starter for Houston for the past 2 seasons. However, last week he did drop a interception, and well, they did have 36 points scored on them, so looks like Houston decided to make a move, and we'll see in the long run if it's for the better. But one new addition that all Birmingham Stallions fans are excited to see is defensive tackle Perion Winfrey. Yes, the former 4th-round pick, the former all UFL defensive tackle, was signed with the Cowboys, was recently let go, and he is back in Birmingham ready to terrorize spring football. I personally can't wait. We had him out at a Renegades event, and I got to meet him, talk to him for a little bit, and it's funny, they had only Renegades items out to sign, and I was like, you're a Birmingham Stallions player. I'm not going to have you sign our Renegades gear. And he was like, you know what? I respect it. I get it. And now that he's coming back for the Stallions, thank God I didn't have him sign it. Could you imagine me having a Renegade signed card of a Birmingham Stallions player? Travesty. Man, I can't wait to see Perion Winfrey back on the sidelines because he is an absolute monster. And this past week was one of the best holidays in all of sports social media. It was April Fools, and the UFL is no stranger to a good April Fool's joke. UFL co-owner Mike Rapoli put out a tweet saying that the Birmingham Stallions home opener was moved to 11 a.m. with a pregame performance at 9:45 a.m. with Gucci Mane. Hey, if you want to wake and bake a Gucci Mane, that sounds pretty fun. Not gonna lie, but 11 a.m. football game, 9:45 a.m. pregame. Yeah, not rolling with that. It's still at the usual time. Got to clarify that that's a joke. And then one of my favorite UFL Centel accounts, UFL Daily, posted that the famous Michigan sign stealer Connor Stallions got a job for the Columbus Aviators. There were a lot of good ones this year. I don't know if anything could ever top in 2023 when the St. Louis Battlehawks posted that they're going to move to Los Angeles, but hey, everyone gave it a great attempt. It was a great year for April Fools. And make sure you stick around after the break because we have our usual, the hot topic, survey says, community content, and so much more right here on UFL Tonight. What's up, guys? I'm here with my boy Ducky. Now, if you haven't been following along, I'm in California, so I'm not able to make this Tuesday night game, but we're giving away 3 front row seats, and we're actually doubling it. We're giving away a total of 7 tickets to Tuesday night's game against the Battlehawks versus the Renegades. And make sure you're following along because we'll be giving those out tomorrow. And if you don't win these giveaways, don't worry, you can still buy tickets at theufl.com/tickets.
Who said I can't wear my Converse with my dress? Well, baby, that's just me.
Welcome back to Hot Topic on UFL Tonight, where you give us your hot takes and we react. Now, we start off with Between the Goalpost, who says Jonathan Garibay will be a top 3 kicker by the end of the year. Now, if you missed it, I know that Noah had Jonathan Garibay as his number 1 kicker in his preseason power rankings. And then, of course, that first missed extra point, the blocked kick, everything was going haywire. But hey, I believe in Garibay. I watched him for an entire season with the Arlington Renegades back in 2024, and he was a fantastic kicker. He only missed 1 kick all season long, and hey, I'll chalk it up to nerves. It was a packed out crowd in Lynn Family Stadium, and hey, putting up that first point of 2026, just let one slip by him. And then, of course, there was that second one that was blocked. I don't know if you can attribute it to him. That's where I'd lean on an expert like you, Noah, to grade special teams. But if you're saying he's going to be one of the top 3 kickers, hey, I have more faith in you because you watch more long snapper, more punter, more kicker film than anyone I've ever met. Even more than some kickers, punters, and long snappers that I've met. You're just an absolute sicko and love it. Next, Dallas might be the best team with the worst attendance. I've seen this multiple times from multiple people. Listen, half true, other half somewhat true. Okay, fair. Will Dallas be the best team in the league? Yes, we've all established that. We all know Dallas is by far the best team in the league. Renegades are winning the 2026 UFL Championship. But as far as attendance goes, I want to put it into perspective. The Renegades have half their stadium currently under construction. They're adding a lot of suites, a lot of concessions, a whole roof to Toyota Stadium. Come 2028, it is going to be absolutely fantastic and around 25,000. But it's going to be state-of-the-art, brand new. I cannot wait. They're already making some really awesome progress. But that means this year, for this season, they are capped at around 11,500 seats. So whenever we only fill about 9,000 seats, that means we filled about 80% of the stadium. Now, don't get me wrong, I want to fill all 11,500. I want to have a sellout every single week, but you only have 11,500 to sell, you sell 9,000. That's a pretty good margin. If I ran a candy bar company and I had 11,000 candy bars to sell, and I sold 9,000. And my buddy was like, "Oh yeah, well I have 47,000 candy bars." I'm like, "Okay, how many did you sell?" "I sold 12,000." He's in crippling debt. Okay, so we have a very small capacity. Yes, we need to get the crowds up. We need to get more Dallas Renegades fans. Make sure to buy your tickets at theufl.com/tickets and get to your next Renegades game. Next game is going to be on Tuesday against the Battlehawks. But guys, come on. This is all about getting a fun, energetic atmosphere. And I can tell you firsthand from a fan perspective, the atmosphere in Toyota Stadium was miles better than Choctaw, and it was a great time. You are seriously missing out. Let's not talk about taking away football from Dallas. Let's talking about getting Dallas more into football. And then at number 3, we have another kind of attendance crowd related question. The Showboats would have won 2 more games if they played in Louisville instead of Memphis. Fans are the difference maker. Well, I can agree in some instances, like St. Louis in a dome that gets insanely loud. It can disrupt communication, be, a little bit shaky. Could have happened to Jonathan Garibay there in Louisville. So, hey, I'll give one game to you, but I don't think crowds make as much of a difference maker to the individual players and coaches as much as we think. I feel like I'm pretty close with the defensive coordinator for the Memphis Showboats, and I don't know, he just never really had the crowd on his mind kind of wherever he went. They're all very much locked into the game. It is very hard to get a player or coach's attention on game day. So I don't know if because they're also not that great of a team. So let's see if Louisville sticks around for a bad team. But does mid attendance in Louisville make a difference maker over, a couple thousand people in Memphis? I don't think so, but I'll split the difference with you. I'll say, hey, they win one game. Maybe the Brahmas can't mount that amazing comeback or something like that. Next up, we have our weekly survey says. Now, make sure you follow along at UFL Tonight on X as we post 3 weekly polls for you to participate in. As always, the first poll for next week's episode will be posted right after this one, right at kickoff. Starting off with poll 1, we have how would you grade the start to the 2026 UFL season? And looks like 92% of you liked what you saw. You rated the UFL 2026 season opener as either an A or a B, with 7% of you giving it a C. And then looks like we have 1% who are Houston Gambler fans rating it a F. Personally, I agree with the general public here. I loved week 1 of the 2026 UFL, and I think kind of a high B is where I would put it too, about 87, 88% right there. Because, hey, we could get attendance up in a couple markets like Orlando, like Dallas, but we saw some great football, and hey, we also saw some week 1 football. But good news is it is just week 1, and it's going to get better as we continue on. And continuing on, we are doing on to poll 2, where we asked you about the Orlando Storm quarterback situation. Now, a lot of people expected Dorian Thompson-Robinson to get the start, but surprisingly, Jack Plummer got the nod. Now, he played well enough to get the win. However, we do have to note he had a couple of interceptions either dropped or negated due to penalties. So we asked you if you expect to see Jack Plummer start the entire game in week 2, or do we see the season debut of Dorian Thompson-Robinson? And it looks like not all of you guys are sold on Plummer just yet. We have 61% who expect to see Dorian Thompson-Robinson in some way, shape, or form this weekend. And I have to say, I agree with that. I think Dorian Thompson-Robinson has too many valuable skills to be left on the bench in spring football. His mobility alone can shake things up. Think about how DC had a solidified quarterback 1 with Jordan Teamu, but still was able to use Derek King. Like, there are ways to use 2 quarterbacks, and it could be that both Plummer and DTR are the guy, but I think we should get both of them reps, and I'm all for everybody in spring football getting some film, getting something to show the NFL teams out there, and just, hey, getting on the field because your family and friends want to see all these players play. So, hey, let's share the love, get DTR some reps, get Plummer some reps, and I think we can see good football out of them both. Now, every week here on UFL Tonight, we want to highlight some of the best content in the UFL community on our weekly community spotlight. And this week, we have to start off with the UFL co-owner Mike Rapoli and his reaction to the first ever 4-point field goal in UFL history by Matt McCrane. He had a live reaction right there in the stadium. Check it out.
The first 4-point field goal! Come on! Get good! Get good! Yes! 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 4-point field goal! 4-0, baby!
And next, shout out to the Storm Surge for tagging UFL Tonight on X and showing how loud and how proud they are of that Orlando team and witnessing their first win in franchise history. I can't wait to see the wall grow louder with every game. And finally, shout out to Stephen Peak for this really cool picture of the Louisville crowd. Really puts it into perspective just how cool and how great the atmosphere was there in Louisville. First ever time getting to see professional football played in the city, and man, did they show out. And talk about a city that's getting professional football for the first time. Your Columbus Aviators are about to take the field right there in Ohio, and we talked to the man, the myth, the legend behind the flight deck, Ducky himself, on this week's community content interview.
I can't not picture myself not watching spring football just because I love it so much. No matter if it's a team in my area or whatever, I'll latch onto a team, and that's my team for the season. It's just one of those things where your passion goes over your pride for me.
Yeah.
So I always support spring football.
Well, finally the stars have aligned and you have a spring football team in Columbus. How excited are you for football in Columbus? How excited is Columbus for pro football in the city?
Columbus and football, they're just like, those two go together like peas in a pod, just because, Ohio State's there. It's the largest. People will try to fact check me. It is the largest college football fan base. And I just think Columbus loves football. I think they're super excited for this team. I've been checking the ticket sales and everything like that, and there's a lot of gray. There's a lot of gray and a lot of not very many seats left. It's looking pretty good for them.
Let's get into some of the flight deck stuff. So to get started out, what sections of the stadium are the flight deck and how many tickets are left for game one?
The sections are 138, 139, 140, 141. I think 142 as well. I'm not exactly sure, but it's
the flight deck's growing. It's about to be the whole damn stadium. Let's be
huge.
Honest.
As my knowledge right now, the flight deck was sold out. They opened up a couple more rows, and they've been doing so as needed. And so far, from what I can see, the flight deck is completely grayed out. Like there might be
sold out flight deck week one in Columbus. If that doesn't tell you how much Columbus loves football, I don't know what does. Because that's just awesome.
It's amazing. Yeah. Might be a couple blue seats here and there, a couple resale tickets here and there, but outside of that, those sections are completely grayed out. Here's a little bit of history for the flight deck. It used to be called the Nordeck with the crew, whenever the crew used to be there, but they moved stadiums now, and I saw that they were going to historic crew, and I was like, I remember seeing that section just go crazy during MLS games for the crew. Like they were so passionate and so proud. And I wanted that for Columbus. I wanted Columbus for their football team. I wanted them to have that. And it used to be called the Nordeck, and it had a little E at the end. And Columbus has a German thing going on. They've got the German village and stuff like that. So the Nordeck is actually German for Northeast Corner. It's a little bit of a nod to that.
From what I hear, flight deck has something for every single game, and y'all had something last week for that away game.
We hold a flight deck watch party at Combustion Brewery, the Clintonville location specifically, and every single away game there will be a flight deck event there. You can watch the game with other Aviators fans. You don't have to be in the flight deck, but it's the atmosphere of the flight deck is what you're going to get whenever you go to this watch party, basically.
They got a specialty flight deck drink too, right?
They do. We have our own. I wish I had one on me right now, but we have our own Pilot Light Lager is what it's called. It's a pretty sweet looking can.
I love some light lager, so if you could just like steal me a 6-pack or so, I'll definitely crush some, like no question about it.
Yeah.
So thank you to Ducky for joining the show, and shout out to the flight deck, man, and shout out everybody there in the good old OHIO. But it is time for Baker's Best Bets. Looking at the lines for this weekend, we start off with Columbus versus DC. DC opens up as a 1.5 favorite with the over-under being 40.5. And then we have the Orlando Storm being a 3-point favorite over Louisville, with the over-under being a similar 40.5 there. Then finally on Sunday, we have the Gamblers being 7-point dogs to the Birmingham Stallions, with that over-under being the highest of the week at 44.5. And then we round out, I would say the weekend, but we're actually playing on a Tuesday night with the Dallas Renegades opening up at 3.5-point favorites against the St. Louis Battlehawks, with the over-under set for 42.5. Now, my first pick this week is going to be the Louisville Kings +3 against the Orlando Storm. This isn't saying that I think the Storm are a bad team. It's actually that I think the Kings are a good team. And I think that Jason Bean had the accuracy last week, but his receivers were either dropping passes, bobbling passes, leading to interceptions, or just kind of leaving them high and dry. I think if they can clean some things up, they can keep this game either close against Orlando or go home with the win. Now, my second best bet of the weekend is going to be that Birmingham-Houston game under 44.5. Now, don't get me wrong. The Birmingham Stallions have a wide receiver room that could challenge an NFL's. But even though the Houston Gamblers had the third most points scored last week, they did not look that great against Dallas's defense. And quite honestly, I think Birmingham could have a better defense in Dallas, especially getting Perrion Winfrey back on that front seven. That is going to be absolutely demoralizing for either Nolan Henderson or Hunter Deckers. And I think they're going to crumble under the pressure, kind of like they did against Dallas in week 1. And this isn't going to be pretty for them, but I think if you only have one team that's really scoring, you're not going to hit the highest over of the week alone. So therefore, I'm taking the under 44.5 here. Hey, let's say Birmingham scores, 25 to 30 points. And I think the Gamblers are held to under 10 here, if I'm being quite honest. And my final best bet of the week, in fact, this is my lock of the week, okay? Everybody doubted me in week 1, but where are the doubters now? I'm taking the Dallas Renegades -3.5. Now, hear me out, okay? Austin Reed is the truth. Tyler Vaughns is the truth. That connection is going to be electric all season long. And Mike Rapoli's horse, Renegade, also won the Arkansas Derby last weekend. So Renegades are on a win streak. I am rolling with the Dallas Renegades -3.5 against the St. Louis Battlehawks without a doubt. Now you know how it goes. Every week we have our Friday top 5, and I have been waiting for this one because we finally have some 2026 UFL top plays to show you in this week's Friday Top 5. Starting up at number 5, we have Austin Reed stepping up in the pocket, looking deep, and taking a shot to Tyler Vaughns for a 59-yard gain. Coming in at number 4, we have the St. Louis Battlehawks. Brandon Silvers finds Gary Jennings Jr., who spins off a defender and continues running on downfield, juking out everybody in his path as he runs all the way down for a 64-yard reception down to the 1-yard line. And coming in at number 3, despite the blowout, we have a Houston Gamblers highlight with Jalen Moreno Cropper, the first ever 2026 UFL kickoff return for a touchdown, comes in on week 1, a 93-yard return to the house. This comes right after a fantastic touchdown by the Renegades. What a crazy sequence of events. And then coming in at number 2, we have Kava Tazino looking like that 2024 UFL championship, just punching out the ball, completely changing the narrative there for the Stallions as they would go on to win. And then number 1, we have Money Matt McCrane making history, the first ever 4-point field goal in UFL history with UFL co-owner Mike Rapoli in attendance. Absolutely have to love it. So that was all of our top plays, and our time is running out, so I guess it is time for my official prediction for Columbus versus DC. Now, typically with all of these games, I want the home team to be victorious, but sadly, I don't think this is one of those cases. I wish the Columbus crowd gets to see their first ever win in franchise history, but I think the DC Defenders, the defending champions, get back on their A game after a rough week 1 loss to St. Louis. I'm taking them to win 22-16. So that's all for this week of UFL Tonight. I hope you guys all tune in here in about half an hour on Fox to watch the DC Defenders take on the Columbus Aviators there in the historic Crew Stadium. Thank you.